Welcome back everyone. I'm sure most of you guys already know this, but the iPhone XS has actually turned 2 years old like a couple of months ago, but I finally got around to making this video, and I already did a late 2020 review about this, but I basically want to hit on the things that have changed and honestly where this phone stands 2 years later. Now, when this phone first came out in 2018, which was 2 years ago, a lot of people, I think, me included, I was, you can even look back the videos I made at that time, I was kind of saddened by the fact that Apple didn't really change the design too much. But it's funny because we kind of became used to it, because even this year, they changed the design with the flat sides, but the front is almost identical. And that's why phones like these have still held up extremely well. Apple purposely, I think, does it because first of all, it saves them parts. They can kind of, make the next one seem a little bit better than the previous one by changing one thing. But with this year, going from the iPhone X to the XS, this was actually the last set of iPhones, I'm assuming, that actually brought the home button, which is so crazy. This was the last one to actually remove it. So this was the first series where that specific technology was not there. And in my opinion, that really revolutionized the future of Apple, because since then we've only seen one other home button iPhone, which was the iPhone SE2. And still, that's something that's pretty impressive in my opinion that Apple was able to do. Now with this specific phone, even though visually it wasn't that crazy of a difference, I will say there were a lot of improvements with this specific phone. We had the XS Max that came out, which is a different phone, but we had that come out in that series. We had a better front-facing camera as well, which is pretty impressive. We had a better back camera from what I'm seeing. We had that new gold color, which is still one of my favorite colors of any iPhone ever. And even with my 12 Pro, that's literally the color that I got, and I literally love it. The performance, this was the first iPhone to bring 4GB of RAM, which was also pretty impressive. And I just think this was pretty much the iPhone 6s reincarnated. Every single problem that we had with the iPhone X, the iPhone X is pretty much fixed, which I kind of felt like the last S-series phones that we had, the iPhone 6s, were one of Apple's most impressive, biggest, and huge differences coming from one phone to the other. And this phone was no exception. And I feel like at that time, even though visually it wasn't that big of a change, it still kind of holds up today in terms of the outside, because when you look at a phone like the iPhone 12, 12 Pro, 12 mini, visually on the front, they look almost identical. Of course, there's some differences. We have the flat sides on the new iPhones, but the screen on this phone is still current. The design, the notch, everything is still there. And that's why this phone doesn't really look outdated. Even on the back, the dual camera setup, the iPhone 12s still have a dual camera setup for the most part. And that's why I think visually this phone is still beautiful. It still holds up. And a majority of people, I think, in this day and age don't really care if they have, this type of iPhone or a 12. I think most people care if they have like a home button type of iPhone or this one. And that's something that probably matters the most to a majority of people. And visually, like I said, the visual changes are some of the bigger ones they can do. And even though the 12 did kind of remove the curved sides for the flat sides, I still think it holds up extremely well in terms of today's standards. And even compared to something like the Galaxy S20 and all those phones, this one doesn't look that bad. And that's something I'm really happy to report. I think this phone still looks beautiful and it still completely holds up. Now internally, the best thing about this phone is that it's gotten several updates already, and it still has way more updates to come. I don't really think it's halfway through its life cycle, but it's still going to be, lasting for an extremely long amount of time. And on top of that, even the updates that it just got, with iOS 12 it started off with, but iOS 13 and iOS 14 haven't been extremely bad. I remember all of iOS 12, it was pretty good. All of iOS 13, it was pretty good too. I like the features that it brought. Now iOS 14 in the beginning with, it's definitely not the best, and it definitely has a long way to go, but I still think, for the time being, it's still a pretty good performing phone on iOS 14. The biggest downside may be the battery life, but the features look great. The widgets on this phone look awesome, and there's just not that much to complain about, which I'm really, really happy about. At the same time this phone came out, we also had the iPhone XR, which was Apple's kind of cheaper, offering that they had that was like kind of like a brand new thing they were doing. And I really did like that. That was something that was really cool. $749 for that phone. Right now you can pick it up for like $400 in a lot of places. And this phone still has a ton of features built in. The XR is also really awesome, and I'll be making a separate video talking about that. But I think for a majority of things that you're going to do with it, it's going to be perfectly fine. And we already know that. This phone is not that old of a phone. And that's why Apple has done such a good job with their phones, even with 2 years ago. We look at another phone that came out in 2018, the Samsung Galaxy S9. That phone actually is pretty decent, I'm not going to lie. But I feel like the iPhone XS has held up even better than that phone. And the Galaxy S10, S10e, those phones came out a little bit after this phone did. And that set of phones are also pretty good, but I still think the XS holds up a little bit better than the Galaxy S10 in my opinion. So honestly, what I can tell you is the XS, if you have it, it's a great phone. It's a great pickup. Definitely nothing to complain about, and I actually do like it a lot. Maybe it could have been a little better here and there, but I think for a majority of people out there, if you still have an iPhone XS, you should be happy. It's a tremendous phone. It's beautiful, and it still has a lot going for it for sure. So that really pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly, everything else. I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.